Hi everyone. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the Puritans this week and their belief in their own special destiny. So to start with, if we look at where they began, like the Pilgrims, the Puritans were English Protestants who believed that the reforms of the Church of England did not go far enough. In their view, the liturgy was still too Catholic. Bishops lived like princes, ecclesiastical courts were corrupt. So even though the Church of England had reformed, the Puritans did not agree with the lifestyles of its rulers. And because the King of England was head of both church and state, the Puritans' opposition to religious authority meant that they also defied the civil authority of the state. So they were getting themselves in some trouble here, and they decided to leave. And they really saw themselves just like the ancient Israelites who had an exodus to escape from their conditions. So in 1630, they set sail for America. Here's the ship Arabella that they sailed on. And they didn't actually break with the Church of England like the Pilgrims did. They were seeking to reform it. So as they went about this exodus, their belief was that they were chosen by God to do this, and that they were going to be fulfilling a special role in human history to establish a new, pure Christian commonwealth. That was their aim as they came to America. So John Winthrop is the leader of the Puritans. He gives this sermon while they're still on the Arbella sailing, called A Model of Christian Charity, and you can look this up if you like, but Winthrop really makes clear the kind of community he envisions when they get to the Americas, one of exceptionalism, charity, communalism, and unity. And so they do arrive in New England, and they establish the Massachusetts Bay Colony, and they name the town of Boston. And life is really hard here, but they see the Bible as a model for their lives, and they're practicing this new form of their religion called Puritanism. And some of the tenets of this religion are the belief that we're all born sinners, that there is no way that we can ensure salvation for ourselves, that we are actually all predestined, and God has already chosen people beforehand to be saved. And then the Puritans view the Bible as God's covenant with them. So they did see themselves as God's chosen people. However, there is a hierarchy here. In Puritan society, men and women had separate roles. Women served as secondary subjects to their husbands, and in some cases, women were even viewed as intellectually inferior to male children. Despite the fact that they believed in the original sin and that everybody was stained with that, women carried a heavier burden of sin due to the story of Eve and her actions in the Garden of Eden. So her actions were viewed as a corruption that extended to all women. As of 1636, colonial Puritan women officially were not allowed to speak in church. They could not lead discussions on matters of theology. They could only do so in all-female prayer groups. They were allowed to read the scriptures for themselves, but they were not encouraged to read or write in general. So this was kind of a conflicting thing. And you'll see how these restrictions come into play when you look at the story of Anne Hutchinson coming up. But what I wanted to talk about today is this idea that Winthrop puts forward in this sermon on the Arbella. He uses the phrase city on a hill, and this is describing the expectation he has in their role as the chosen people of God, that the Massachusetts Bay Colony was going to shine as an example to the entire world. So they were going to be so pure and live their lives so well that they would create an example the whole world could live by. Now, however, this form of exceptionalism and believing themselves to be the only chosen ones creates an interesting start for America in this view, because this metaphor of a city on a hill persists even till today. we see this idea that we still have in America, that the United States has a special destiny and is really a beacon for humanity and for the world, that we are the leaders in that sense. And this has created many problems as the Europeans and the white men have went out to colonize other cultures and try to make everyone the same, not respecting other cultures or the value that these cultures have. So in considering lasting cultural effects, ways in which this theological system and the consciousness it shaped continued down through many generations and cultural moments, it's worth speculating on what those effects might be. So what effects has this mindset of a chosen people, of a city on a hill that began with the Puritans, what effects has it had on our society? And have you witnessed any religion or nation that feel similar core beliefs are a beacon for humanity and the destiny of the world as the Puritans did? In what ways do you think these ideologies show up in different cultures in public discourse? And I think if you think about that, you'll be able to name some of those institutions that still carry these ideas down to this day. So I think it's kind of an interesting start to the mindset that we as Americans had back then, and the mindset that still persists in many ways today. So I hope you enjoy looking at this start with the Puritans, and I will talk to you soon.